Good morning, dear students. Welcome to another session of Introduction to Data Structures and Algorithms. So in the previous session, we started off with the discussion pertaining to control statements. So in that, we discussed if else, and switch statements. And we looked into one of the looping constructs. So that is while loop we have discussed. So looping is used when we want to repeat few of the things, say for a particular conditions to be satisfied. If the condition fails, then we stop the process. So that is what is happening in while statement. So here while is a keyword, and within brackets we have the expression, that is whatever condition we want to check. So if this expression is true, then all these statements will be executed. So these statements will be executed unless and until this expression will be true. Once this expression turns out to be false, the execution of the program moves out of this while loop. So whatever within this parenthesis is there, right? So that will be forming the while block. So once the expression fails, the execution goes to the next statement, which is present after this while loop. So this we had discussed in previous this thing, that is in while, if the what you check the condition, if the condition is true, you perform some of the tasks, and then again check the condition and keep on continuing till the expression is true. If the expression is false, you go and execute the next set of statements. So here an example we had seen. So first include the header files, then you start off the your program with the main function, which indicates the starting point of your program. So then declare the variables whichever are required in the program. So in this case, this is integer type. By default, it will be integer type. You have declared sum. So here you are asking the user to enter an integer value, which will be stored in num, So now that number is stored in a temporary variable in the statement. So then what they're doing is they're checking whether the temperature is not equal to 0. They're checking whether the temperature is not equal to that 0. That is whatever number you have entered. So that is nothing but the temperature what you're considering. So they're checking whether that is not equal to 0. If that is not equal to 0, then what you're doing is sum, you're assigning with sum plus the temp mod 10. So what this does is it takes the remainder part of temp and adds it to the sum. And next what you're doing is you're dividing the temp with 10. And this process continues until this expression which is there leads to 0. This expression which is there leads to 0. So if temperature is still not equal to 0, again these steps are performed and it continues. So now here what they are doing is the sum of the digits which are present. Say if that if you have entered a number as 1, 2, 3. You have entered a number as 1, 2, 3. Now what they are doing is, so this one is stored in num. So now in temporary variable also you are storing it. In temporary variable also you are storing that information. So now what you're doing is you're checking whether the temp is not equal to 0. So as we discussed, this value is stored in temp, and num is also consisting of 1, 2, 3. So here you're checking whether temp is not equal to 0. If we just check, temp is 1, 2, 3, which satisfies this condition. Therefore, this part gets executed. Now initially what is sum? Sum is 0. Now what you're doing, you are adding those numbers. So 0 plus remainder part of this temp variable. So what is the remainder of this temp? If you divide it by 10, you will get this digit. Temp mod 10 will give you the last digit. So what you're doing, 0 plus 3. So in the first step, this will be 3. So next what you're doing, you're taking the temp and dividing it by 10. So when you divide it by 10, you'll get the quotient. In this case, the quotient will be 12. Quotient will be 12. So now new content of temp will be 12 because of this statement. So again, you come to this expression, check it out. So if you just check, the value is 12, which is not equal to 0. It satisfies the condition. Again, it comes in. So in previous step, sum was 3. Now what you're doing, you're taking sum, that is 3 plus temp mod 10. So in this case, 12 mod 10 will give you the quotient value, which is 2 in this case. So now it will be 3 plus 2, which is 5. That is, this is the new value of sum. Now again, you take temp is equal to temp divided by 10. So when I divide 12 by 10, what is the value I'll be getting? I'll be getting 1. That is, the quotient will be 1. So 1 is still not equal to 0. Therefore, it comes inside the loop. Now, what is the previous value of sum? 5. So it will be 5 plus 1 mod 10. So in this case, the remainder will be 1 itself. So it will be 5 plus 1, which is equal to 6. So here, basically what you're doing is you are counting the sum of the digits which are entered in this integer. So this will give you 6. Now temp divided by 10, that is 1 divided by 10 will give you a quotient which is 0. Now when we check the condition over here, 0 not equal to 0, false. This statement will be false. So therefore this part will not be executed now. So you come and print what is the sum of the digits of the number what you have entered. So in this case, it is 1, 2, 3 and the sum is 6. So this is what will be printed in this case. So this is what you're performing when you're using the while loop. So next we have do while loop, which is slightly different from the while construct what we have used over there. So here do and while, these are the keywords. So after do you have a parenthesis and before while you have a parenthesis. So all these statements from 1 to n belong to this do while loop. Now, unless and until this expression is true, these statements will be executed. Once this statement is false, it will come out of the do while loop. Now, what's the difference between while and do while? So if you just observe, first is the syntax in the way which it is written. So if you just observe, this is the syntax of while, whereas this is the syntax of do while. Now there is another one difference. Now here, if you just see in while statement, in while block, these statements are executed only if this expression is true. That is, for the first time, if you encounter this part, right? For the first time when you encounter this, what happens is if this expression is false, that time none of these statements are executed. Initially only if they are false, none of these statements are executed. So execution of these blocks either 0 times or more than 0 times is dependent on the expression, whether it is true or false. But in this case, in do while, right, what happens is initially, once you encounter the do while loop, at least once these statements will be executed. These statements will be executed at least once and then the expression will be checked out. Whereas in while, what is happening? The expression is checked out before entering this loop. Expression is checked before entering the loop. If the expression is true, then only these statements get executed. If the expression is false at the starting itself, then these statements won't be executed. But in do while, what is happening? These statements will be executed at least once, whether the expression is true or false in the initial state. So at least once they get executed, and then the expression will be checked. So if the expression is false, then the statements will not be executed again. But if it is true, again it goes back and it keeps on executing. So this is another difference between while and do while. So this is how it goes around. You have do while, you have some of the statements. So before checking the condition, you execute these statements. That is statement 1 to n. You execute these statements and then you check the condition. If it is true, then you continue the execution. If it is false, you come out of the do while loop. So if you just check the flowchart is also the difference between, gives you the difference between while and do while. So here what you are doing, while, then you're checking the conditions. If the condition is true, then you're executing these statements. So these are nothing but these statements 1 to n. And then again you're checking the condition. If the condition is false, you're going and executing the next statements. So this is these are few of the differences pertaining to while and do while. Now here we have again the same program, compute the sum of the digits of a number, but you have to use the do while loop. So in this again you include all the header files, then start your function, start your program with the main this thing, then declare all the variables which are required. So one to accept the number, one to store this number temporarily so that I can perform some operations. Then you ask the user to enter the integer, so that number will be entered. So now what you're doing is you are taking that number and storing it in a temporary variable. You are not disturbing the original number. Now using the do while statement, we are checking the same process. That is the logic. What we are doing is we are using the same logic. But what happens is, before checking the temp variable over here, these statements will be executed first, and then whether temp is 0 or temp is not equal to 0 is checked. So that is one of the major difference which comes around when we are using do while loop. So this is what is happening in using a do while statement. Whereas in while, we check the condition first and then we executed these statements. But in this case, what happens is, after the program stores the number in a temporary variable, it comes and sees that there is a do while loop. So these statements will be executed once and then this condition will be checked. So once the condition is checked, it sees whether it is true or false, and then it goes back and executes this statements. So now here it is given that the compiler will generate an error if this semicolon is not provided. So it is the syntax of the do while. You have to provide this semicolon after the while expression, after the do while statement is written. So this is using the do while. Now, next one, what we have is the for loop. So in previous this thing, if you just see, what you have is, in while, in parentheses, you have just the expression. So here, if you just see, you are just checking whether temp is not equal to 0. And inside, if you just see, you are altering that variable over here. You are altering that variable. So similarly, in do while, what you're doing, you are altering the variable over here and you are checking the condition. That is, you are checking whether this value or the expression is not equal to 0. But in for loop, what happens is, you have the syntax in this. You'll be having totally 3 expressions in this. First expression is actually related to initialization of a variable, which will be used for looping purpose. So it will be used for looping purpose. That is how generally we go through. And second expression, that is expression 2, will look out for some condition based on this expression 1. And lastly, the expression 3, which looks out for either the increment or decrement of the index parameter or the related to expression 1. And then these statements will be executed. So how this goes around, we'll just check out. So you have for statement, you have all the expressions related to that. So you have declared an expression. This declaration will be happening only once. This expression one will be executing only once before entering the for loop. Expression one will be executed only once before the for loop gets started. Once this expression one is evaluated, right? Next, again, this expression one will not be evaluated. Next, it is related to expression two and expression three. So these these two will be checked out. So we'll see through it with an example. So here, what is done within the for loop? Here is the initialization process, which is related to expression one. And then based on that expression, you are checking some condition over here, which relates to expression two over here. So this is pertaining to the first expression here two. And if this is true, you perform some operations. And within this blocks itself, you can have this expression three performed, or you can specifically go to the for loop and perform it. So it can be either 2 comma 3 over here you're performing, or you're performing 3 over here. So it depends on how you're performing. So then you keep on executing this part unless that is statement 1 to n, unless and until this condition, that is expression 2, is true, or else you come out of the for loop. Now let us see the same through an example now. Now here we can observe, using a for loop, write a program to print integers from 1 to 10. So we have to print all the integers which are present from 1 to 10. So include the header files, then the main function which indicates the starting of the program, then declare a variable I, which is of the integer type. Then uh, in this case, we'll be printing the integers from 1 to 10. So that is what we are doing. So in order to do that, we can make use of the for loop. So here, what is the syntax? For is the keyword, and within the brackets, here what we are doing, we are specifying I is equal to 1. So this is pertaining to expression 1. And then you can see that there is a semicolon over here. So we have to put the semicolon. And once this is initialized, we have to check the condition pertaining to this expression. So in this one, what we are doing is we have to print only up to 10. So we have to start with 1 and we have to print up to 10. Therefore, what will be the condition? The condition will be I lesser equal to 10. So from 1 up to 10. So now this will not be executed. So first initialization happens, then expression 2 is checked. First expression 1 is executed. So once this is executed, this is done. Now next I'll not come to this part. That is I is initialized. So at the starting when it is initialized, after this, I'll not be coming over through this when I'm moving through the for loop. Okay. And then what we have expression 2. So in this case, it is related to the condition under which this for loop has to be executed. It is related to the condition under which this for loop has to be executed. So I is equal to 1, I is lesser equal to 10. Yes, 1 is lesser equal to 10. Therefore, what I'll do is I'll print this number. So print %d/n. So that is I'm printing the value of I. So in this case, the value of I will be 1. So now what happens is in this case, right, since parentheses you are not specifying, that is these two parentheses are not specified. So if you're not specifying the parentheses for the for loop, only the first statement, whichever is present, will be part of this for loop. So in this case, only this print statement is part of this for loop, not the getch. Only the print statement is part of the for loop. So it will print. Now what happens is once all the statements are executed, then whatever expression is present here, that will be executed. That is expression 3 will be executed over here. So in this case, I plus plus, that is it will be incremented. I will be equal to I plus 1. So it will be 1 plus 1, which is equal to 2. So once this expression is evaluated, it goes and see what is expression 2. So in this case, I is lesser equal to 10. That is what you're checking. So now 2 is lesser equal to 10. Yes, it is true. So again, the statements get executed and the value of I will be printed. So once again these statements are executed, expression 3 will be evaluated and again the condition will be checked, and this process will be repeated unless and until this expression 2 leads to false condition. So once this leads to false condition, the execution of the program goes to the next statement and then it stops. So this is what is happening in this case using a for loop. So next we have arrays. So array is basically a linear data structure. So why it is linear, we'll just check out, because we store the information in say contiguous memory locations. So indirectly array is nothing but a contiguous memory locations. So in which you'll be storing a data of particular type. So here what we are doing is we are grouping elements which are of similar data types. So for example, if I want say the integers say 1 to 10 to be stored in continuous memory location. So all have to be of integer type, all are integer types, and I am storing it in contiguous memory location. So if this address is 0, next address has to be 1, next address has to be 2, so on. So if this is the case, then in simple form, I go for arrays. I go for arrays. So in arrays, you will be able to store data which is of similar type. So here again, the data which is stored, right, it will be stored in continuous memory location or contiguous memory locations. Now, if I have to access any of the data over here, any of the data. So if I want to access this, so this will be having one particular address. So if I know the address of this particular case, right, then I'll be able to access all the members which are present in the array. So that is one thing. Another parameter is I make use of what is called as index. Index, which basically tells me that if this is the index, so index actually starts with 0. So index of the first element is 0, second element is 1, and so on. And the last element will be n minus 1. If there are n elements in the array, the last index value will be n minus 1. So we'll look at this with an example. So index helped me to access directly one of the parameters which are, or one of the datas which are present in that array. So using that index, I can access any of that data. So here the first element index is always 0. That is what I specified over here. So if this is the first element, no matter whether whether it is a floating number or any character or anything, the first element will be having an index value of 0, and the last element will have an index of n minus 1. So here we can see that this is how it is logically represented. This is an array A. So here I can store the first number. Say I can have anything 2, 4, 3, 1, any value over here. So this is the first element of the array. This is the second, third, and fourth. So index of this one. So this is the index using which I can access any of these numbers or all of these numbers. So the first element index is 0, and then it keeps on incrementing by 1. That is index. Index keeps on incrementing by 1. So what are the operations which will be performed on the array? We can perform insertion. Suppose I want to increase this one and add another one element, I can perform that. That is insertion. In between, I want to insert the elements, I can do that. Then I can delete any of these numbers. Then I can traverse around these numbers which are present over here. So how do I perform these operations? And then I can perform the sorting and searching. So in this one, if I want to sort these numbers in the form of ascending orders, say from lowest to highest, I can take this numbers and arrange it in that form. And if I want to search one particular number, I can perform even that operation in the array. Now remember, in arrays, right, all the elements which are present will be of similar type. That is, this indicates that they'll be of similar data types. So if it is a floating point number, all will be floating point numbers. I cannot store one integer and one float. I cannot do that. So either it has to be completely float, completely integer. So that is what you will be performing in this case. So what are the different types of arrays? So we can have single dimensional arrays and multi-dimensional arrays. So sometimes you specify it as array of arrays. Say for example, so this one, if you just see, I am able to store only say a single row. There is only a single row, but many columns are present. Only single row. So this is a single dimensional array. Now, if I have another row added to this, another row added to this, then this turns out to be what? Multi-dimensional array. So it is like two single row arrays combined together. That is array of arrays. So this is what we have for types of arrays. So even I can have in this one like two-dimensional, the matrix is an example of two-dimensional. And in some cases, we might require three-dimensional. So that is also possible. In that case, we'll be having three indexes. So in this case, I have only one index. But in multi-dimensional, I'll be having more than one index depending on how many dimension it is. If it is two-dimension, right? That is the previous case. So if I have it in this form. So here what happens is I would require two indexes, one to access which row and one to access which column. So I'll be having two indexes. Suppose if it is three-dimensional, that is, it is somewhat in, if it is in this form, if it is in this form, then I require another index k, because one to row, one to the a column, and the other one to specify the cell information. So these are a few things. That is, this is three dimension what I have specified. So in this way, we can have multi-dimensional arrays also specified in your C program. So next one, single dimensional, how do I declare it? So you specify what data type you want to store in that array. You give the array name and you specify how many elements you'll be storing. So in this example, we can see that here the array name is A, and this array will be storing information pertaining to data type, which is of the integer, type. And next, how many elements I'll be storing? I'll be storing 10 elements. So this is giving me information that A will store 10 elements, which is of the type integer, So how do I initialize the arrays? So look at this example, then we'll come to the syntax. So what you're specifying, you can do it in two ways. One, directly when you are declaring it. When you're declaring it here itself, you can give the assignment, or you can do the declaration separate and initialization separate. So here you can see that here we have A of 3, where A is a array which is having three elements, and these three elements will be of the type integer. So, and in parenthesis, which is equal to parenthesis, you are specifying all the three elements. So at zeroth location, at zeroth index, I am having 2, at the first index, I am having 4, and at index 2, I am having 8. So three elements, I am three locations, memory locations, I am initializing with these values. You can initialize each element separately. You can perform it in this way. That is, you use the array name, and in square brackets, you specify the index which you want to replace. So here what happens is, it will replace the element with whatever number is present over here. Suppose if this was 3, then what would happen is, so in this execution, it would be like 2, 4, 8. But when I use separate initialization, suppose I wanted to replace it with 3. So it would be like, it would be replacing this 2 value over here, 3, 4, 8. So this is how it will be performing the operation. So these are two ways. So if you come and see at the syntax, what we have, we specify the data type, then the array name and the size in the bracket. So array name and the size in the bracket. And then what you do, if the size is n, right, you give the values for all the elements by putting it in parentheses, that is element 1, element 2, all these values up to element n. So that is what you have done over here. And you have putting a semicolon at the end. So next, this is one way wherein you are combining both declaration and initialization. Now, if I want to just initialize it, then we have array name. So that is in this case A, and in bracket you specify the index number. So in this case, I want to store a value in the location index 0, that is at this element. And then in equal to, you specify whatever value you want to specify over here. So this is how you go ahead with the declaration and initialization of single dimension array. Now, what will be the size of the array in bytes? So as we had seen that in previous this thing, we had seen that integer stores, say integer requires 16 bits of information, which is 2 bytes of information. So if I consider that, so array size will be basically given by the length of the array into the size of that data type. So in this case, integer we are considering, integer requires 2 bytes of memory location. One integer requires 2 bytes of memory location. So you're specifying array name and there are 4 elements in this. So you require 2 bytes. How many numbers you require? You require 4 numbers. Therefore, when you multiply this by 2, you will get 8 bytes. So this array will consume 8 bytes of memory. Memory. So 8 bytes of memory location will be assigned to this variable, that is A. It will be assigned to this variable A. So this is the size of the array, and this is the logical representation of the single dimensional array. So here what we have, this is giving you the index information, that is A within the bracket. It gives you the index value A of 0, A of 1, A of 2 and A of 3. Now, if all are integer, as per this one, if all are integer, so what you're doing is you're storing 10, 20, 30 and 40. So in the first location 10, next location 20, then 30 and 40 is stored. If the memory address of the first value, that is of 10, is given by B, then the next address location of the next element in the array, that is this value, the address of this element will be actually depending on the data type. So since integer requires 2 bytes of memory location, what happens is this number 10 will be consuming 2 bytes of location. It will be consuming 2 bytes of location. Therefore, next will be B plus 2 will give you the next location. It will give you the address of this element. So similarly, from this point, if you just consider, so 2 bytes is consumed here. So if I want this number, I have to add 2 to this value. So it will be B plus 4, or I have to add B plus 4, because this is the third element. So this is how it goes on. So using a single dimensional array, write a program to find the average of 10 numbers. So you have to find the average of 10 numbers. So what you have to do is you have to store all the elements in the array. So include the header files, then you declare you define the main function. Then here what you're doing is you're declaring an array which is having 10 elements, then you're declaring the variables which are required. Then you are declaring the variable for average, which is of the float type. Then you're seeking for 10 integers from the user. So in order to do that, you can use the for loop. So for I is equal to 0, 2. So as we see in the previous case, right? So what is the index of this one? This starts with 0 and ends with what? 3. Since if you just observe what is this one, it is array which is of size 4. So here if it is a of n, what happens is you have to take 0 to n minus 1. So this is the logic what they have used over here. So I is equal to 0 to 10 minus 1. So that is I is lesser equal to 9. So you are using this and you are storing that information in each of the location. So if you have all these 10 memory locations, you are accessing it via the index and the name, that is a of I. That is what you're performing over here. So each location you are accessing via this index. So once you do that, you'll store all the numbers over here, all the 10 numbers. Initially you are making the sum equal to 0, otherwise it will be containing the garbage value. So now what we have to do is again you utilize the same concept of the index and add each of the elements, and again you can use the for loop. So for again I is equal to 0 initialized, you're checking whether this is the last element or not in the array. If not, you add it to the previous element, sum plus a of I. So if it is 0, a of 0, so whatever number is there, say for example 1, that gets added to this sum value. So this keeps on continuing, index keeps on incrementing, I will be 1. So 1 is lesser equal to 9, true, it comes, a is equal to a of 2. What is a of 2? So whatever number is there, that will be taken and then added. So this keeps on adding, and at the end of the for loop, you will be having the overall sum of all these elements. So when you have the sum of all these elements, now what you do is you take the average of this number, that is sum divided by, you have 10 elements totally, so sum divided by 10 will give you the average number. So this is indirectly what they're doing is indirectly, since this gives you the quotient since this just gives you the quotient now, but I want the fractional representation. So what you're doing is you are indirectly type converting it. So by multiplying it with 1.0, that is what you're doing over here. Otherwise, what would happen is only 5 would be printed. Only 5 would be printed because average will consist only 5 and it will be printing like 5.00. This will be printed, 5.50 will not be printed. Because of that, you are multiplying this one with 1.0. You are type converting it to float. So this is what you can do with the single dimensional array. So similarly, multi-dimensional array, how do I declare it? So in this case, we have to require two indexes. So we specify it in this form, that is data type. So we have data type, array name, and within two square brackets, you specify the row descriptor and column descriptor. You require two indexes. So here you can just see in the example that the data type is integer and the name given to this array is A. And here you can see that we have two specifications over here. This gives that it is an array of 2 by 2, 2 rows, 2 columns. So how many elements will be there? There will be total of 4 elements in this case. So how do I initialize? It is the same way what we had done it for single dimensional. You specify either you initialize it at the time of declaration or you can initialize it separately. So it is independent in both ways. So array name, row index, then column index, and then you specify the name. You specify the value of the element in each of these cases. So this is only the initialization part. Now, if you want, you can, along with this, instead of specifying colon, you specify equal to, and then in parentheses, right, you specify the values of the elements. You specify the values of the elements. So when you're specifying the values of the elements, you can use semicolon to separate the row, one row with the other row. So that we can just check out through example. So here you can see how the initialization goes around. So I am in this case, what I'm doing is say if I have something in this case, again, index value will start from 0, whether it is row or column. So index value will start from 0, since here you have two rows, for example. So it will be like 0th and the first row. There are two rows. 0th, first row will be having the index of 0, and next row will be having the index of 1. And there are two columns. So first column will have the index of 0, and next column will have the index of 1. So if I have to specify this element, suppose I have it in this form. So I have something like A, B, C, D, just example. So I want to specify this element, then I have to access the row first. So here it is first row and the column is 0. So therefore, how do I access it? I suppose the name of this one is A. I access first row and 0th column. First row, that is, this is the index what I'm specifying. It is not the first row what I'm specifying. Array which is having the index of 1, and array column which is having the index of 0. So that is what I'm specifying. So this one will give me the value of C. So if I want to store something in this location, I can specify whatever is required over here, say 2, 3, whatever is specified. So that is what they are performing over here. Otherwise, I can perform the initialization at the time of declaration. So integer A 2 by 2 array, you are declaring the array over here, and here itself you are initializing it. So this is all the elements one after the one after the other they have specified. So what happens is this will be stored at 0, 0. Second element will be stored at 0th row, first column. This one will be stored at first row, 0th column, and this one will be stored at first row, first column. So at these indexes, these values will be stored. So this is one way of specifying. You can specify if you want to separate the rows, right? That is for reading purpose. You can put a colon over here. So this is first row elements, and these are the second row elements. So you can put a colon over here. So even that is permitted. So what will be the size of the array? So here we have specified, again, size of the array is nothing but how many elements you have total in this array. So which is given by number of rows into number of columns. So that is row size into column size. So that will give you the number of elements which are present in the array what you have declared into size of the data bytes. So that is what we have specified. So here we have 2 into 2, and integer requires 2 bytes. So 2 bytes into 2 into 2, which gives you 8 bytes. So that is for these elements. So this is how it goes around. Again, if I have to access the address, this is how I access the addresses. Again, it will be stored in the contiguous memory locations. So here you can see that while representing, we might represent it as something in this form, that is 0, 0, 1, and 1. So these are the indexes what we are specifying. So for representation purpose, we might take it in this form, but again, it will be stored in continuous memory location. So if you just observe, A of 0, 0 is stored with the first number, what they have specified. Then next 0, 1 is this one, 1, 0 is here, and 1, 1 is stored with 40. Now, if you just happen to observe the memory address, if the first element's address is B, next element's address will be B plus 2, next element's address will be B plus 4, or B plus 2 plus 2, which will give me again B plus 4. So this is how you access the address of the memory of the elements. Sorry. So using a multidimensional array, you have to write a program to represent 2 by 2 matrix. So you have to just represent the 2 by 2 matrix over here. So again, this part will be again common, headers and the main function. Then you declare the variables which are required, and here you are declaring a integer, an array which stores integers. And the size of this one is 2 by 2. It is having 2 rows, 2 columns. So then what you are doing is you enter the elements. You are asking the user to enter the elements. Now here, when we are entering the elements, I make use of the indexes I and j. So since I have to access each of them in say zeroth row, zeroth column, zeroth row, first column, first row, zeroth column, and first row, first column. So this is how I access it. So in order to access that, I loop for within for. So first one I make use for say a row. First one I make use to identify the row, and this one I use to identify the column. So again here if you just see, it is only two rows and two columns. So therefore initialize I and check the condition. So in this case only two rows are there. Therefore I less than two what you are specifying. And when you enter in, you specify the column. J is equal to 0 and j less than 2. So once you specify the column, you are just printing it. That is mod of, m of percent d within the brackets what you are specifying. So what should be the value of this? It should be I and I. So initially it will be 0, 0. Now what you're doing is you are accessing the first element, so which is m of 0, 0. So when you enter the number, that will be stored at this index 0 comma 0. Similarly, you perform this operation until all the elements you have accessed up to 1 comma 1. So once you access this, you can print the numbers which are present in the array. So again, in order to do that, what you do is, again you have to use two for loops, one for row and one for column. So here you're specifying for I is equal to 0, for I is equal to 0, then I less than 2, because you have only two elements over here. You have only two elements, therefore the index value will be in the range of 0 and 1 only. So I less than 2, then you are just printing each of the number by providing the proper tab and new line condition over there. So then you have accessed the 0th row, that is elements which are present over here. So in this case, it is 1, 2, and 3, 4 what you have specified. So accessing the first index, index is 0. Then using j, you are accessing the column. So it will be 0, 1. So j is equal to 0. This statement will be executed unless and until this condition is false. So first two elements will be accessed and printed. They'll be accessed and printed over here, 1 and 2. So next the condition fails, it goes and executes the next condition over here. So this part gets executed, and then again it prints up. Next for loop comes in and 3 and 4 are printed, and the condition fails over here. Therefore it comes out of the for loop. That is the first for loop which is present over here. So this is what you do when you are using the two-dimensional array. So next you have strings. So strings is nothing but the array of characters. So you use char keyword to declare even the strings. So let us see how we can go ahead. Now this is also since this is a array itself, it also stores the information in continuous memory locations. Now, but one special thing about strings is suppose you have some three memories allocated, memory locations allocated to this one. So compulsorily this last location has to store a null character, which is indicated by \0. This is called a null character. So last location will compulsorily have this. So this basically helps us to identify the end of the string. It helps us to identify the end of the string. So how do I declare it? You specify the data type. So in this case, it is generally the char data type. So then you specify the name of the string, and in square brackets, right, you specify how many locations you want or how many characters you want to store in this string. So if you want to store say 10 characters, you have to specify one extra location. So if I have to store 10 this thing, right, one extra location, because one will be consumed by the null character. And here itself, you can initialize the string itself within double quotes. You can initialize it here itself within the double quotes. If you don't initialize, it will store the say garbage values. So now here char is the keyword, and as I specified, the data type will be of character data type. Then the name is str, and in this case you will be able to store around how many characters. You will be able to store around 9 characters and plus the null character. So total 10 characters you will be able to store, including the null character. So here you're specifying how many, you're specifying hello, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So how this will be stored? You have 10 memory locations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now here remember only 5 this thing is specified. So it will be HELLO. Now after this one, right, here null character will be stored. Here null character will be stored. So what is this telling is, this is just telling you that maximum 9 characters plus 1 null character. You can store maximum these many characters in this string. That is what is the information. You can just store a single character in this one and move ahead. Suppose if I had initialized it just with H, in double quotes, I had just specified H. So in that case, first location will be H and next location will be a null character. So remaining all will be a garbage representation.